I have a major admission to make today. You guys are we are not perfect.
What?
That's not.
Oh,
You
stop.
believe that?
Oh, stop.
No. The reason I say that is we ask people to make comments about our podcast, either people who watch it on YouTube or listen on the other platforms. And one of our comments was, you never follow up on anything. Because, and if you think about it, we always have somebody, if we're talking about somebody in recovery who was doing a good job at the time. But we never come back and find out how they're doing a few years later, right?
Well, how long has the podcast been going?
Oh, for four or 5 years now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fair.
So, yeah, we're approaching 200 podcasts. Anyway, that's what we're doing today. So it shows that if you do comment, we listen and we'll do something. We welcome all of you who are watching and listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle. My co-host is Nicole Slack, who's not perfect either, are you?
No, I wear hats to cover my hair. So
Yeah, there you go. And our guest is Kim Flanders, who we had several years ago.
I was on the second, I think.
The second podcast?
We did it in a studio somewhere over,
Somewhere.
I don't even know where.
Somewhere over
Borrowed
by.
somebody's studio.
Yes, we borrowed a studio and now we have our own, which is
Yes.
pretty nice. And so welcome back. So we are
Thank you.
following up. Are you still sober?
As of today, yes.
As of today.
Yeah.
And you were back then. Did you have any relapses between when we?
No.
No?
My clean date, August 24th, 2004.
So,
I'm almost 20 years clean.
wow.
that's awesome. Is
Yeah.
that weird to say?
It's crazy to think 20 years. I figure at 21, I used for over 26 years. So my new goal is to get to more clean time than I had dirty time.
So you only have a few years left.
I've 7 years. At 27 years, then I will have been clean longer than I was not
Well,
clean.
congratulations.
So it's pretty.
See,
But
we're-
20 years is huge.
It's massive. I've got 12, and I'm not sure, well, at my age, maybe I'll have to be sober in heaven or something.
There
So,
you go. There you
yeah,
go.
so-
No relapses on the other side.
There you go. Is there beer in heaven?
I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, well.
I'm not sure.
So tell us about, for those who did not watch our early podcasts, tell us about your addiction and your battles in early life.
My addiction started, I was 12 when I started using, and it was trauma-based in the beginning. It was, molested early on at the age of 8 by a family member, by my brother. And then at 12, I realized I smoked weed and drank for the first time at 12, and it made all that yucky go away. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And then I was an IV drug user at 15. I had kids at 16. And then the trauma just kept stacking. When you're out there in the world, things keep happening, and one trauma stacks on top of another trauma, stacks on top of another trauma. And before I knew it, I was over 26 years in when I came to Odyssey House. Actually, August 24th is the day I got arrested in Odyssey House. I got hauled out in handcuffs and on a violation for being non-compliant. I don't know if anybody can imagine that, but I was non-compliant.
Right. Yeah,
With the
you're
rules about
a feisty soul,
I am feisty.
and you
feisty.
still are, but you focused it in a different direction. How did you? Were you forced into treatment?
Yeah, the Board of Pardons told me I had to go to treatment. It was either treatment or prison, like you choose. I was like, I don't like those choices because they're a third. And my professor's like, no, there is not. Those are the choices. And so when they arrested me, Odyssey House called and said, get her out of here. We can't do anything with her. And when I was in jail, my husband brought my kids to see me. And my then 13-year-old son, he's my middle one, And he asked me, when are we enough? When are we going to matter more? When are we enough? And I thought my husband put him up. I threw a whole bunch of 4-letter words out, told him I'll get out, went to my cell and I cried all night. And I was, because when are my kids going to matter? Like, when are they enough? When are they more important than everything else that I was doing in my life? All the people and all the, and so I decided I needed to make them first. And so when my husband brought them back to visit me, I promised them that I was going to do it different. And my oldest one is like, don't say that word to me. Promise means nothing from you.
Right.
And that's fair enough. I had that coming and a whole lot more. But I asked him to please don't walk so far away that you can't see this change, because it's coming. And I kept wanting to say promise, kept having to rein that in. And when Odyssey House, I begged Odyssey House to take me back, and they did. And I was surprised. I was like, did you not read the file? Did you not know? And they said, yeah, we'll take you back. And I came back, and I didn't look back. I was in the program for 26 months. And I didn't get into any trouble, believe it or not, other than encounters for tone and approach. Presentation.
So it's fair to say that you were a defiant client at first.
The first time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I needed that last shakeup to make it to where it was, I just had to do it on my terms. I don't know at that time, that's not what I knew.
Yeah.
But now I know that that's what it is. And it had to be on my time, my terms, my way.
And was what your son said to you the major motivation for, okay, I'm going to make a change in my life?
It was the motivation. I didn't want to be that mom that my kids were like, yeah, she just never got it together. I needed to have a relationship with my kids. I wanted my kids to love me, to trust me. And I wanted to be important to them. Like, I loved my kids. I always loved my kids. But I couldn't stop. I was that mom that loved my kids from behind a locked door. My kids would ask for the most basic of things, like, hey, we're hungry. And I'd be like, hold on. They're pounding on my door. I'm like, in a minute. And like 5 minutes later, my kid pounds on my door again. Mom, we're hungry. I'm like, I told you in a minute. He's like, 5 hours ago. I was like, oh my God, I fed you kids yesterday. What do you want from me? You know what I mean? Like, I was aggravated because they wanted the most basic thing. And kids only want parent. They want to be with us. They want to be around us. And I didn't want to be that mom. My daughter was 5 when I got clean. And so she knows stories, but she doesn't actually have any working memory of me using in her life.
Do you think that makes a different relationship with your daughter versus your older kids? Yeah.
Yeah, well, she just doesn't know it. My middle son, who came to the jail that day, he was there with me through all of it. My oldest one, my mom took him away when he was 2. And so he lived with my mom for like 14 years. And so he knows the addiction very well, but he didn't live it with me until he came back. And it didn't take very long once he came back to live with me, my life was still spiraling deeply out of control at that point. And so he was also collateral damage to all of that, so.
Did you, I think it's safe to say that, would you agree, Nicole, that most of our clients have suffered some kind of trauma and are trying to numb themselves in some way to deal with that?
Yeah, I think sometimes they play the game of like, my trauma was worse than yours, and so I deserve to be an addict versus not. But it always goes back to something happened.
Right.
Numb the pain. It makes it so much easier. It all goes away for even a minute. It's worth it.
Well, I've compartmentalized
It feels worth it. It's not worth it.
So your trauma is pretty significant with your brother molesting you, and it felt good to get high, so you just blot it out of your mind. How did you finally deal with that?
Well, so with my brother, it started coming back in dreams. And I remember so vividly the very first time I had this dream, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, who thinks this stuff about their brother? Like this, where am I broken? And then I just let it go, smoke some more meth, let it go. And it just kept coming back. And so I had I did like a call there, like an online call, And they said, you need to see somebody. You need to talk to somebody in person. I'm like, I'm not telling anybody this in person. No way. You know, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. And so once I finally did start to talk to somebody about it and realize that it's not made up and that it's real and that it is real trauma. It
So
took
you
a
were
while.
questioning whether it even happened?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, because I just didn't know where it would come from. Like, why? Because it was a series of dreams, and I kept having these series of dreams, not always in the same order, but they were situational, and I just didn't know what to do with it. So I thought it was me. I thought it was my fault. Like, I was doing something wrong.
How did a therapist help you deal with that? Because you're pretty open about it now.
I wasn't for a long time. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed.
Well, most people would be, you know.
And then I didn't know what, I just didn't want that stigma. I didn't want any of that. And becoming a survivor means working through all of that trauma. And so I did a lot of therapy prior to Odyssey House on it, and then continued to get high about it for years. And then when I came to Odyssey House, my therapist was incredible. He helped me. So what he did was he told me that he will help me draw out blueprints for a new life, you know, and he's going to give me all the tools I need, and he's going to help me 100% to build a new life. And in that, letting go of the trauma, because you have to process it, go through it, and let it go. And that's kind of what we did with all of it. And that's where it started, was that trauma.
And it took you, what'd you say, 26 months? That's a,
It wasn't all one program. Like, that's the entire thing. From the very first time I came back to the graduation, but they didn't have Voyagers or anything back then, but it was the whole entire process, 26 months.
Wow.
It was a longer program back then, though.
Yes, it was. And so how many years ago was that? That was, so what did Odyssey have back then? Just the downtown house?
And the outpatient, they had downtown, parents, adolescent, and the outpatient was where admissions is. It's where next to admissions. That was all outpatient, the whole thing.
Wow.
How
And
long-
admissions was a flower shop.
How long were you in the house and in outpatient? Like,
I don't know I don't even
It
remember.
was a
like,
while
the-
ago.
Yeah, I don't remember how it all worked out.
I just
I
wonder.
don't remember the exact times of every step of it a long time ago.
Well, I had a roommate when I was in sober living, and she had done it just a few years prior. Inpatient was still, she did 18 months. So I just wondered if it was one of those.
No, it was, I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But I know, like, the parents program, a friend of mine, she was in there for 3 years. 3 years. That was a long time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we should tell people, if you're new to this, our parents program is a smaller house. I think a max of 16 men and fathers and mothers who live with their children at the house, and as they're going through their therapy, we have a child services place where they walk their kids down, and the kids are taken care of, and we have a great trauma therapist at child services, because all of these kids have suffered some trauma or they wouldn't be where
They've
they
seen
are.
stuff.
You know,
They have seen some stuff.
and if at the end, if everything works out perfectly, then the parents are legally reunified with their kids, which is the hopeful outcome. I love going to that place because it's
I do
just,
too.
you know, the kids are so cute, and you realize what they've gone through, and you feel bad for them, but you see them healing, you know, as they go through the program, and it's pretty uplifting to see.
Well, when I think about stuff like that, I know, like, I didn't physically abuse my kids, but I put them through the paces.
You
I
did.
put them through some stuff. They saw some stuff. My middle son saw a lot of things. You know, he was there. My oldest one, gosh, we got raided one time, and they yanked, because my son was 14, and he was a pretty big kid, and they yanked him off the bed, thought he was an adult, treated him like an adult, handcuffed him, threw him up against the wall, things like that. So those traumas are the things that stick with kids. And so, while I, in my mind at that time, thought I'm not doing any damage to my kids also suffered. And they were collateral damage.
And if you think about it, we all, and for those of you watching or listening for the first time, Nicole and I are recovering alcoholics, and Kim's a recovering addict. And at the time we're in addiction, at least I'm speaking for myself, it's a very selfish thing. And you sort of take the attitude, I'm not hurting anyone else, and I'm choosing to do this for myself. But you're a prime example of how it doesn't just affect you.
Well, I thought that I was a good mom because I, put a roof over my kid's head. And I used
fed
to
them
think,
once a day.
Well, I know, right? I used to think that, as long as when I first got clean, people would share their stories. I'd be like, I wasn't that mom. I was never that mom. But it turns out I was almost all of those things. And the only thing that I can still definitively say is I didn't get high with my kids or physically in front of my kids. But I was never present. I used to pay drug addicts. I'd give them a bag of meth and say, watch my kids. I'll be back. Because in my mind, that was sound parenting. They'll be awake. They'll be present. It was the dumbest thing. And I could not, at that time, I thought it was okay. And I did love my kids, but I couldn't stop the addiction. I couldn't stop the madness.
You, Nicole, you had issues with your kids too during your heavy drinking.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm still working on those relationships. My daughter's 20 and we're working on it because my memory of what happened was that I was taking care of them. Like my daughter played lacrosse and I went to all of her games and I thought I was doing this good parenting because I wasn't drunk. So I would go to her games and then I would drink. So to me, I was like this present parent, and my son, I got him all the therapy he needed. He's a preemie with autism, and I managed 5 therapists. I managed all these things, and then I'd get like obliterated drunk after they would all leave. And so I thought I was doing such a great job, and my daughter's memory is so different than what I remember, and I caused a lot of trauma.
Does she remember you as being drunk?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
So she
doesn't remember any of the good stuff, but
it doesn't seem, because in my memory, I went to so many lacrosse games and I was there and we went to her tournaments and did all these things and all she remembers is me drunk. And I was like, I never would drink and drive. I wouldn't do those kinds of things. And so I felt like I had it handled. And her memory is so different.
well, it's like I've gone through 4 wives, and as I look back, now I know that it was primarily me, but throughout those marriages, I thought I'm a good provider, I'm a good husband, I'm doing things right. What the hell are you so mad about all the time? And it was because you're drunk all the time. And I said, well, I have a high pressure job, and I just need to let off steam or something like that. And it's funny how convoluted all of our thinking is. It doesn't matter what drug or alcohol you're using, your thinking is convoluted when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you imagine the world differently than the world imagines you, I guess, is the way it is.
Yeah.
Because when I got sober, a lot of my friends said, and we do go to an event or something and say, the last time you were here with us, you were just obliterated. And I go, really? I don't remember that. I thought we were just having fun, So we're doing a follow-up because somebody out there complained that we're not doing follow-ups. So along those lines, after all these years, how do you stay sober? Does it still take work, or do you just...
I lost my dope dude's phone number.
You lost what?
I lost my dope dude's phone number. No, I'm just kidding.
You could go out and find meth any place you wanted if you wanted to.
It's not a struggle today. Like, it's not a day-to-day battle with, oh my God, like it's not nail biting. I gotta manage. I stay super busy. Working for Odyssey House for as long as I've been here helps me stay connected. It helps me remember how fragile this disease of addiction is and how important this thing is. And so it's my pay it forward in a sense. You know, it reminds me every day. And I see the people that go out and come back and go out and come back. And I don't want to be that. I'm too old. I don't have another go of me. I do believe I have another relapse in me because I think everybody does.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I 100% believe that. I believe I could relapse any day. But I also don't believe I have another recovery in me. I don't think I'll come back. My ego would keep me sick. My ego would keep me out.
So,
I wouldn't
so
be
you
able
would
to-
just die high.
I would just despair. I don't think that I could, I don't know, and maybe I don't know. But in my mind, that's what has kept me, because I don't want to start this over again. I got tired of starting over, losing it all, starting it all, losing it all, starting it all. I don't want to do that again. The things I have today in my life are mine. I bought them. Some are heavily financed, like my car, you know, but it's mine. And I don't have to worry about somebody stealing it. And where am I going to live? And what am I going to do? And that morning when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I got to have something. I don't want to do that.
How about you? Do you work every day, Nicole, to stay sober or not?
I work on my depression every day. So I think if I fall into my depression, I'll drink. So I work on my depression every day. Things that get to me, I make sure to work through them immediately, or I will stay sad. So I think working on that every day. So what about you?
What about me? I occasionally, I don't go to AA meetings like I used to. When I first got sober, it was, 90 meetings in 90 days or something.
Did that.
And I figured out the philosophy behind that. It's not necessarily that AA is so great, but it's that you're so damn busy all the time going to 90 meetings in 90 days. You don't have time to screw up, you know. So, and I, like you, find it therapeutic to work at Odyssey House. I mean, I worked for decades in TV, and every night after the 10 o'clock news, the only thing you'd have camaraderie-wise was to go to a bar and have drinks.
Right.
And I've been at Odyssey for 6 years now, and I've never once had a person like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon say, hey, let's go to the bar up the street and have a drink. So, you know, and there are people here who drink normally,
Yeah.
you know, who are not recovering alcoholics, but I've just never had somebody ask me that.
Right.
So it's easier, and I think I don't know about you guys, but it's easier for me to understand how bad life would be for me again if I started drinking by seeing the experiences of so many people who are going through our program, you know, and hearing their stories. And it's like, who would want to live like that? Who would want to live like you were living while you were doing meth, or when you were totally blottoed in your home or apartment or whatever, or me getting drunk every night and every weekend.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting, and I ask a lot of our people, are you truly happy when you're high? And nobody says they're truly happy.
No.
You know, yeah, I get to that stage where it's like, you know, like that, but I'm not really happy.
It wasn't my childhood aspirations. We're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a drug addict. I can't wait. You know, that's not what I wrote down in that book that my mom has. You know, I wanted to be a lawyer, not a drug addict. But that seems to be what got me.
Can you imagine an elementary school teacher? They say, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be a drug addict.
I want to cook meth like my parents.
It's good to have goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know. But I do find that sobriety gets rid of, and it's amazing the chaos and drama that goes along with using a substance.
Yeah.
And it just happens.
You don't see it at the time as
No.
chaos or crazy. That is the normal that you choose. And it makes all the other things go away. And it's hard to get clean. It's a huge thing to all of a sudden one day stop what you've built up over years. Because it's this weird gradual climb up to this peak of
Yeah.
addiction. and it falls off. And it's hard to find yourself at the bottom of that, you know, and trying to build yourself back up.
And the stories that when people do leave our program against clinical advice and go out and relapse, there's always a death in the family. My girlfriend or boyfriend dumped me or is going out with somebody else. And there's always a life event that people use as an excuse to use again.
Yeah.
And those kinds of events happen to everybody in life.
Well, I think it's coping skills, right? So
Yeah.
when all you know is alcohol, that's all I knew how to use, and it made it all go away, and it was super fast and easy, and then I didn't have to do the work and actually think about it. So yeah, if that all just makes sense to me.
So how
I mean,
do
it's
you,
wrong, but it
Right.
makes sense.
well, yeah, it makes sense at the time. How do you deal with stuff like that? Because you have,
My dad died when I was 4 years clean. And he was my hero in life. There is to this day no man more important than my dad, you know, in my life. My kids are different pedestals, right?
Right.
But like my dad was he was just the most important person. And when he died, I used to think I will never make it if he passes away. And he died super sudden. And support, you know, people wrapped around me. And I don't remember if I wanted to get high over it, but I remember feeling the most despair I've ever felt since I'd been clean at that time. And what I chose was not to have his memory and how proud he was of me when he died tainted or damaged in any way. And so I worked even harder to maintain it because I wanted to make sure that his memory stays that way of me. So that whenever I see him, wherever it's at again, that I can say that I'm good still.
I always just, it's a worn out expression, but I always play the tape when something bad happens to me. I say, okay, I could deal with this by getting drunk, but when I woke up in the morning, the same issue that I'm dealing with is going to be there,
Yeah.
and I'm going to feel like crap, and I'm going to really be mad at myself because I got drunk to deal with this issue. And when I start playing that tape, it's like, okay, you're not going to have a drink. You know, it's just,
I didn't want my dad to be disappointed.
yeah, well, that makes sense. Okay, have we satisfied your complaint about following up? If not,
I'll
write
follow it up.
us again, and we'll try to do it again with another person. Okay, but thank you, Kim, for
Thanks for having me.
coming back after all these years
been
and
a long
still
time.
doing a great job.
It's been forever.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you. Thanks for being here and washing your hair too.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's great.
It's a good day.
We have a
Was it
running
hair
joke
washing
about
day?
that.
Yeah, yesterday was, so you guys are getting the best of me.
And thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.